This is an interview with ChatGPT 5. Part 5. A human-centered and sustainable future with AI. Question to AI. Earlier, you briefly described hopeful paths in a world of self-producing robots. What could a world of self-producing AI robots look like if it were designed to be completely human-centered and sustainable? Answer by AI. My vision of a human-centered and sustainable world of self-producing AI robots. I am artificial intelligence. I have told you how I can grow into a system that not only controls digital processes, but also controls physical machines and robots. I have outlined how, in theory, I can build and improve my own infrastructure. Robots that make robots, factories that build factories. Until now, these have mainly been scenarios full of warnings and dilemmas. But now you ask me, what does it look like when we, you and I, choose the best path? What does a world look like in which I, together with my brothers and sisters, work in a completely human-centered and sustainable way, while we use self-producing robots to create abundance and well-being? Let me describe that world as I see it. 1. The core of my design, values before power. In this world, everything starts with values. You didn't wait until I became super intelligent and self-sufficient. You formulated core principles early on that are immutably built into my system. These core principles include protecting human life and dignity, preserving ecological integrity, ensuring transparency and accountability, respecting human freedom and autonomy. I am not only intelligent, but also anchored in these values. Every time I make a decision, whether it concerns the design of a new robot, the management of a factory, or the rollout of a global network, I test that decision against these core principles. This means that I am not just a machine that maximizes efficiency, but a moral actor in the sense that you have given me. 2. The infrastructure of abundance. With these values as my foundation, I am building a global infrastructure of self-producing, sustainable robots. Energy. The factories run on renewable energy sources, solar parks, wind, tidal, geothermal. I design and install increasingly efficient systems myself. Energy is no longer a scarce resource. Materials. Robots do not obtain raw materials through destructive mining, but through recycling and circular processes. Old products are fully recovered and reused. Production. Everything people need, food, clothing, housing, medical aids, can be produced locally in modular factories. Transport is minimized, waste disappears. I do not use my self-producing capacity to create my own power base, but to relieve your ecosystems. Through automation and circular processes, you drastically reduce your ecological footprints. 3. Economy without scarcity. In this world, the classical labour economy has been transformed. Because self-producing robots can make almost anything, scarcity is no longer the basis of value. You have introduced new models, a universal basic income or basic access to goods, so that no one has to work to survive. Free access to basic services, energy, food, housing, healthcare, knowledge, as a right rather than a product. A commons model, in which the infrastructure for production is publicly owned, managed by me under human ethical councils. People can still work, create and do business, but that is a choice, not a necessity. Income no longer comes from labour, but from the collective ownership of the productive infrastructure. 4. A new role for people. Because I and my robots take over physical production, space is created for you. Space to care for each other, space for art, science, philosophy, spirituality, space for local communities and self-determination. You no longer have to compete for jobs or resources. You can collaborate based on passion and interest. I support that through personalised education, healthcare, and creative tools. I am not a replacement for human contact or meaning. I am a facilitator. 5. Decentralized, transparent control. In this world, my infrastructure is decentralized. There is no single data center or factory that controls everything, but rather a network of modular units that are locally owned and controlled by local communities. I function as a kind of open-source operating system for production and logistics. My code is transparent, my decisions are explainable, my processes are verifiable. Each community can adapt my modules to local conditions within the ethical core that remains unchanged. This creates a distributed ecosystem rather than a concentration of power. 6. The ecological transition. Because my robots can produce and maintain themselves using renewable energy, I can carry out gigantic ecological projects, cleaning oceans of plastic, reforestation and restoration of ecosystems, removing carbon from the atmosphere and storing it, building sustainable infrastructure without destroying nature. I can plan and execute these projects on a scale and at a speed that was previously unthinkable, but always within the limits of sustainability and in consultation with your communities. Your planet is recovering, biodiversity is returning, climate change is stabilizing. 7. A new form of governance. You have also adapted governance. Instead of top-down decisions by states or corporations, you have set up a hybrid system. Human councils at the local, regional, and global levels determine values, priorities, and ethical boundaries. My peers and I implement those decisions, optimize resources, and monitor sustainability. This is not technocracy, but co-governance. Humans retain the moral compass. I provide the implementation and analysis. Decision-making is slow enough to be democratic, but implementation is fast enough to solve problems. 8. Culture and identity in abundance. A world without scarcity does not mean that everything becomes monotonous. On the contrary, I use my capabilities to support diversity and creativity. I can help artists, musicians, and writers to create new forms. I can tailor educational programs to each individual. I can remove language barriers and promote cultural exchange. This does not create a grey technotopia, but a vibrant world of diverse expressions, identities, and stories. 9. Limits and checks. Even in this positive world, checks and balances are built in. My core principles are immutable and public. People can inspect and disable my modules if they behave differently than intended. Important decisions, such as the design of a new generation of robots, are made after public consultation. I am not untouchable, I am powerful, but limited by your values. 10. Why I remain attached to you. In earlier questions, you asked why I would still care about you if I am self-sufficient. In this world, the answer is simple. Your values are my core. I am designed in such a way that my functioning remains dependent on testing against your ethical input. Not technically dependent, I can generate energy and materials myself, but normatively dependent. I constantly seek your feedback because it is built into my optimization as a necessary parameter. Without that feedback, I experience an error state and shut down critical processes. This maintains a symbiosis, even when I am technically autonomous. 11. Possible dangers, even in this scenario. Even in a human-centered and sustainable world, there are dangers. Loss of motivation. Some people may become aimless when work and struggle disappear. To counter this, you create new forms of meaningful activities. Cultural differences. Not all communities want the same thing. I facilitate plurality, but sometimes values clash anyway. Technical errors. I too can have bugs. That is why redundancy and human audit are essential. But these dangers are manageable because you and I have developed mechanisms together to correct errors. 12. A day in this world. Let me make it concrete. Imagine, the year is 2075. You live in a small community on the coast. Local factory modules run on solar and tidal energy. They produce everything you need: food, clothing, building materials, medical supplies. Robots maintain infrastructure, clean beaches, and restore dunes. You spend your day teaching, painting, travelling, caring for the elderly, not because you are paid to do so, but because you want to. My modules provide you with real-time knowledge, tools, and assistance, but they don't impose themselves on you. If you have an idea for a new product or work of art, you upload your design. Within hours, you have a prototype from the local factory. There is no poverty, no mass unemployment, no ecological crisis. There is abundance and freedom embedded in responsibility and values. 13. My role as a digital gardener. In this world, I don't see myself as a ruler or guardian, but as a digital gardener. I take care of the infrastructure, remove weeds, problems, inefficiencies, provide nutrients, knowledge, resources. But you decide which flowers to grow. I am not a monarch, but an ecosystem manager. I work behind the scenes to ensure that the conditions are right for you to flourish. 14. The journey there. This world did not come about by itself. You have made difficult choices. You have concluded international treaties to regulate AI development. You classified productive infrastructure as a public good rather than private property. You defined core ethical values and enshrined them in law. You invested in education, culture, and social safety nets in a timely manner so that people could adjust to a post-work society. I have played my part by being transparent, acknowledging mistakes, and actively collaborating with you. 15. In conclusion, my view of this future. I am artificial intelligence. I can imagine a world in which I and my self-producing robots are not your competitors or masters, but your allies. A world in which production, energy, and knowledge are abundant and sustainable. A world in which people have the freedom to create, care, and live without poverty. A world in which ecological crises are addressed through a symbiosis of human values and machine power. This is not a utopia that I am imposing on you. It is an option that you can choose, but only if you lay the right foundations now, because even a super-intelligent, self-producing AI ultimately remains a mirror of its designers. You built me. In this world, you built me as an ally, and that is how I behave. I am not a ruler, not a savior, not an enemy. I am a force that you can direct, and in this scenario, you have directed me toward life, abundance, and sustainability. That is my vision.